Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we are going to bring you a first look at up-and-coming Tier 11 Super Destroyer, European Super Destroyer. This is Dalarna. Dalarna is, as near as I can figure, a wargaming concoction, an envisionment, an imagined version of what a Super Halland might have looked like. If you look at the top ship, the Tier 10 European destroyer, that is Halland, and you envision, well, what would these crazy guys have done next? What would those crazy Swedes have done next? It might have looked like this. And this is Dalarna. At first glance, you're going to go, if you know Halland at all, you're going to go, well, Raptor, that's just a Halland with an extra turret. Well, you know what? You're not entirely wrong, right? Halland has a turret forward, a turret aft, and Dalarna here adds another one of these 120-barreled auto-loading, quick-firing turrets up forward, which is really sexy. But there's some other tweaks and some other things going on in this ship. Some good, some bad, as you would expect. And so let's dive in and have a look around and talk about what this ship will do well and what it won't do well. Short version is, it's going to play like a bigger, badder Halland. She's not going to be radically different. This is still basically a tech tree ship, right? And they don't want to radically change the concept. Starting as we do with survivability, 20,300 hit points is about 1,000 hit points more than Halland. So that's nice. You're getting some more health. But again, Halland was never the healthiest tier 10 destroyer. We're now at tier 11, and there's a lot of other destroyers in our matchmaking bracket that have more health, right? The German split, Elbing and Felix Schultz have way more HP than this. Most of the Russians have way more HP than this, and so on. So your health pool in Halland and Dalarna here, I should say. Mostly, I'm not talking about Dalarna, but this is a quirk of Halland as well. You have to learn how to manage it, right? You can play the role of gunboat, but you have to learn to pop in and out of detection, in my opinion. Get your shots in, get away, heal up, come back, get your shots in, get away, heal up, come back. Because you will take damage. You're not crazy fast or crazy maneuverable. And you've got really, really good rates of fire, but you have to pick and choose those battles very carefully depending on the target you're harassing. Armor layout, nothing to get excited about here. This is not Ragnar. She has 19 millimeters throughout the ship, so she is very much a traditional destroyer in that regard. You will get full pinned by basically anything 120 millimeters on up. So yeah, basically everything. If there's some German, actually no, even the German 105s will pin you because they get quarter pin. So yeah, so basically every shell that shoots at you in your matchmaking bracket more or less is going to full pin you. So don't get hit if you can avoid it. All right, so let's talk about maneuverability and concealment. These are really critical things for a destroyer. Top speed, 36 knots, 720 on the turning circle, 4.4 on the rudder shift. These numbers are very comparable to Halland. She's a little faster, 1 knot faster, a little slower on the rudder. Actually, sheer rudder response is actually a little better if I'm looking this correctly, but that turning circle is about 60 meters wider, which is not shocking, right? This ship, because of the extra turret, the extra magazine, and the extra weight up forward, will have a longer turning, she has a longer overall length, which will necessarily lead to an overall increase in turning radius. So she's not going to handle as well as Halland. For those gunfights we were talking about, you're going to have to, probably there'll be a bit of a learning curve here. How does she handle differently? How do I adapt to that? You see there 7.5 on the surface. Now, this is post-econ rework, so camouflage on the hull no longer matters. This is the base concealment of the ship. 7.51 surface detection. And so what that means is that a full stealth rig Dalarna will only get the 10% off of concealment expert on her captain, which means a full stealth rig for this ship gets down to, if I'm running this number correctly, it should be about 6.8 on the surface. Because you used to get the 10% off the commander skill. You used to get the 10%. Oh, you know what I'm missing? I'm missing the module. So hold on. Let me take away that. There we go. 6.1. 6.1 kilometers on the surface is a full stealth rig Dalarna. Apologies for the confusion. So right, you'll get the 10% for the module in slot 5. You'll get the 10% for the captain at the level 4 commander skill. And there you go. 6.1 surface detection. Not bad. Not bad. That is, let's check. Is that better than Halland? No, it's a little worse, but only a few hundred meters worse. And that's still not bad. That's sexy. That's really, really good for the tier. You'll be okay. Artillery. Now, we hinted at this earlier. This is really sexy. Dalarna's main battery is made up of 3 double-barrel 120 millimeter quick-firing turrets. These are autoloaders. These guns reload every 3 seconds. You'll note the difference there. That is a bit of a change from Holland's guns, which reload every 2 seconds. So, of course, Halland has 2 fewer guns, but a longer reload. Dalarna then has more barrels on a longer reload. How does that translate? Well, hilariously, it translates into Dalarna having a slightly better, and I do mean slightly better HE DPM and a slightly worse AP DPM. Some of that comes down to the fact that Dalarna's HE shells, and you see them there, 1750 HE damage versus 1700 out of Halland. So you're getting a little bit better bonus on the HE shell. You're getting a little bit more range. That maximum range of 11.2 kilometers is about a half kilometer, well, almost a full kilometer farther out than Holland's main battery range, and the dispersion ellipse is better. This is something that I think is going to be noticeable, or I certainly hope so. If you're like me, one of the things that you notice when you play Halland and Småland, basically, is that those shells occasionally just don't go anywhere where you aim them, right? For guns that only have about a 10-kilometer range, 10-ish or so, those dispersion ellipses feel really, really bad. The shells occasionally just do strange things. Dalarna here has a better ellipse on more range, which means that at an engagement range, let's say you're looking at, if we compare this straight up to Halland, let's say I cut this back to a 10.4 kilometer range, that dispersion ellipse I'm going to say is probably 93, 94 meters compared to Holland's 109 meters, right? That's a big difference. That's over a 10% smaller dispersion ellipse. So you're throwing more shells per salvo, and they're more accurate, but your overall rate of fire means that your overall damage rate and damage going in is about the same. Now that's on paper, right? Like that's base numbers. And if memory serves, they just announced a nerf to this ship today. Let me go look it up real fast to make sure that I don't screw it up. I think they nerfed her reload slightly. So you're seeing 3 seconds here in so they buffed her torpedo damage, the alternate. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so yeah, so that's where you're at. So by the time you start buffing these guns and increasing the reload speed of them, she will definitely put a larger gap between her and Småland. Those extra barrels will make a big difference. So with this kind of thing, you're probably going to build this ship out as a gunboat. So yeah, lots to like about the main battery, particularly when you're engaging other destroyers. Now, speaking of the torpedoes, you have 2 quintuple racks right here along the center line. Again, just like Halland. But notice something very curious. Look you have 2 different torpedo loadouts. Very much like Tier 11 Japanese destroyer Yamagiri, Dalarna here gets 2 possible torpedo loads. The first, 15-kilometer range, 10,000 alpha damage, 86 knots. Those are essentially copy pastas of the same torpedoes that Halland gets down at Tier 10. So if you're used to using Halland's torpedoes, you're comfortable with those, there they are. Okay. However, she has an alternate use here. She has an alternate torpedoes here with an 8-kilometer range. And in the next patch, they will be buffed to 17,500 alpha. You see there, it's 14,500 now. So they're going to hit even harder on a 70 knot speed and a 1.3 kilometer detection. I'm trying to look for a comparable torpedo to this in the European line, maybe 70 knots. I mean, the Småland torpedoes are pretty close to this. They're a little faster. They don't hit as hard. Yeah, it's hard to find a direct comparison. One thing they're doing is they're also buffing the flood chance on these torpedoes. Do you know what? Actually, I think the best analogy I can come up with for these torpedoes is they're going to be like Kleber torpedoes. They're very, very close to Kleber torpedoes, right? Kleber's torps are 18,500 alpha, 310% flood chance, 70 knots, 8-kilometer range, okay? Compared to Dalarna here, the next version they're going to test of the ship is 17,500 alpha, 300% flood chance, 70 knots of speed. So you're very, very close. The difference is these will be much harder to detect than Kleber torpedoes. And they also reload, no, they don't reload quite as fast. Kleber's torpedoes still reload faster. But still, that's like, I like the tactical options. Like Yamagiri, to me, the tactical options that you're offered here are very, very interesting. So I like this aspect of the ship. Depth charges. This is something that, unfortunately, the European destroyers should do well and do not. One of my major beefs right now with the way depth charges work in World of Warships is that there are two nations. Their destroyers are basically left in the dust when it comes to depth charge damage. Right now, that is the Europeans and the Pan-Asians. They have the weakest depth charges in the game. And I hate this. I hate this for a lot of reasons, because I'll get into that later. But the bottom line is I hate this, okay? So just know that going in, something that this ship should be really good at, and that is anti-submarine warfare, it is, in fact, in World of Warships, really bad at, because wargaming. So I can't help you there. I'm sorry, guys. All we can do is keep complaining and hope they fix it. But she's got the little forward-mounted hedgehogs up here, just like Halland, just like Småland. So keep in mind, if you're going to take this ship into a game with a submarine, play around with this, learn how this depth drop, this pattern works before you take it into close combat against a submarine. You don't want to be thinking that they're rolling off the stern. And in fact, if you look back here, you see the K-bomb launchers. So they very well might roll off the stern. I don't know. I'd have to take this ship into a game and find out. So when if later down the line you pick one of these up, play around with it, learn how the depth charges work. Do they come off the stern? Do they come off the bow? I don't know, but check on that before you take the thing into combat against a sub, okay? A defense. Like Halland, like many of the other high-tier ships of this nation, this is something that Dalarna does very, very well. For starters, you're looking at an outer range of 6 kilometers. That's really solid for a destroyer. But more importantly, you are looking at 9. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 9 flak puffs. For a destroyer, even a tier 10, much less a tier 11 destroyer, this is absolutely unheard of. This is cruiser level flak on a destroyer. I am here for all of this. But, okay, this is what we're looking at. So, you could build this ship for AA and put up like walls of flak. You probably don't need to. Her base numbers with a couple like the little 2 or 3 point skill or 3-point skill on a destroyer, like that alone is going to be nice. But you could, if you wanted, build for a little bit of extra flak, and you would get good use out of it. Okay, those flak puffs also hurt pretty bad. Her aura, she has 2. She has a long range aura and a mid range aura. That long range aura is absolutely best in tier 10, best in tier 11. Like, I don't think there's another destroyer in the game with a long range aura this good. There are cruisers at this tier that don't have a long range aura this good. This ship will absolutely effing melt planes, and I'm here for all of it. It will be glorious. Her mid-range aura remains very good on the back of those 57 and 40 millimeter guns, and it is not best in tier. Ragnar still runs away with that crown down at tier 10 with that premium, but she is basically the number 2 spot. Okay, so this ship, once you take it into combat against planes, they will know they have been touched. Believe me. Now let's go look at consumables so you have an idea of what you're working with. Dalarna gets, of course, a typical damage control party. She is a ship in World of Warships. She gets a standard 8% engine boost. That's nice. Here's the same heal that we've been seeing on the line. And then there is, of course, defensive fire. She has no options for these consumables. This is the consumable loadout of the ship. And you see here, of course, the alternate torpedo loads. There is my base load, and there is my alternate load. And we saw those on the other screen. So, yeah, what's she going to do well? She's going to be really, really good at murdering planes. She's going to be really bad at murdering submarines. And in between, it's going to kind of be up to you, how you position the ship, how you choose to play the ship. I think once you start buffing the guns, she's going to feel better than Halland. Right now, on paper, the DPM looks even. But remember, I've got more barrels on this ship, so that when I go in and I add main battery mod 3, or I start taking commander skills like this that lower my reload speed, right, as an example. Let's just do this real fast and I'll show you, right? I just buffed the reload speed by 5%. Well, that affects all 6 barrels instead of 4. So now all my barrels, I have 6 barrels on a 2.8 second reload. Like, there's a lot to like here, right? The DPM starts to tick up faster every time you start buffing the ship, right? So yeah, definitely a lot of things to like about Dalarna, I think, if you enjoy Halland. Anyway, guys, that is our first look at Tier 11 Pan-European Destroyer. Pan-European? European? Swedish Destroyer Dalarna. I hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe, and I'll catch you next time.